Hey guys, if you're working on a mix and you find yourself EQing a sound and then coming back to it and EQing it some more and then going away and then coming back to it and EQing it some more and everything's starting to sound nasty and unnatural, well, you might be going down the EQ rabbit hole. Now, this is something you want to try and avoid, and no one's immune to it. It happens to all of us. In fact, it happened to me very recently, and it got me thinking about this and talking about how we can do things better and how to avoid this, or at least go back and rectify these mistakes before it's too late. So what got me thinking about this is a mix that I'm currently working on, and the acoustic guitar was just not sitting right. And I had a little look back at what I was doing with my processing, and I realized I had taken it too far. I'd gone down the EQ rabbit hole, and I had attacked this thing way too hard with EQ, and it just wasn't sounding right. So let me play you a little bit of the track so you can see what we're working on, and then I'll take you through the original processing that I had on the acoustic guitar, and I'll run you through what I was thinking at the time when I was doing these EQ moves, and then I'll show you what I did to start again and get a much better result. Okay, so it's a bit of a ballad. We've got drums, bass, acoustic guitar, electric guitar, cello, keys. There's vocals, but I've left the vocals out of the mix because this is unreleased stuff, so we don't want to give too much away. Now, let me show you the acoustic guitar without any processing. So when I listen to that acoustic guitar without any processing, the thing that really jumps out at me is the mid-range. There's a bit of a droning frequency that's just floating through all the chords, so there must be a note or two that's being held the whole way through. Now, we talked about this in the other video where I was talking about masking frequencies with vocals, and it's pretty much what's going on here. We've got these frequencies in the acoustic guitar which are kind of conflicting with all the stuff that's going on the strings and the keys, and it sort of lets all those little melodies that are playing out be a little unclear. It clouds them, it masks them, right? So that's my first thought, is I'm going to get in and I'm going to cut that stuff out. So let's run through the processing and see what I did, and let's see what I did wrong as well. So first plugin is the UAD 1073 preamp, so just for a bit of color and flavor. And all it's basically doing is a high pass filter. So nothing crazy going on here. Now we jump on to Pro Q3. So we've got our EQ here. Now let me just disable all of these, and I'll run you through my thought processing while I did this. So initially, a bit of a high pass filter to get rid of some rumble. We've got bass, we've got cello, we've got keys, bass drum. We don't need a lot of low end information from the acoustic guitar below this point. Now we go searching for this mid-range frequency. So I found it around 700 hertz roughly. Yeah, this guy and this guy. So somewhere in the middle here. And then a bit of a cut. Get rid of that. Okay. Now, if I'd left it there, that probably would have been better, but we kept going, so found a bit of a nasally frequency. You know, that's fine. And then I think I was listening to the mix and I felt like I need to cut a little bit more low mids out of this guitar to make space for other stuff, so I did a little cut around 353 hertz. And then a little bit of dynamic EQ. It's like 1.3 dBs around 190 hertz, just to contain the low end a little bit. Now, that sounds okay, right? We turn that on and off. Yeah, it's definitely cleaned it up a bit, right? Mid-range is not as honky anymore. But when I listen to it now, I can still hear some of that mid-range stuff that's bothering me. You know? Here. It's still there, right? This cut is probably too narrow. Anyway, we move on, okay? So then I follow this up with some compression. So we've got the Fairchild for a bit of color. and just to dynamically control it a bit, help it sit in the mix a bit better. And then later on, I was probably listening to it with all the other instruments, and I thought I still need some more EQ, so I've chucked on the Logic Channel Strip EQ here, and then I've just done a big cut around 374 hertz. Yeah, probably listening to it with all the instruments going, I thought just do a chop here and make some more space. And then I found a frequency here. So I'm not really sure why. I must have thought 1K was bothering me at the time. Anyway, so there's a lot of cutting going on, right? That's not always bad. You know, you might get to the end of doing something like this and it sounds good, and that's great. But if it's still not sounding good, and then you go for another EQ, which is like probably what I felt like I was going to do. I came back and I'm like, I need some more EQ on this. And I'm looking and I'm like, I've EQ'd this a lot already. I think I need to reset and start again, right? But so let's listen to this. Let's listen to our acoustic guitar that's been all processed now. We've got 2 EQs here, right? They're really chopping into stuff. So, you know, it's cleaned up the mids a bit, but it just sounds a bit unnatural. And, you know, in the mix, it's not terrible, right? But we can do better. So I thought, scrap that. I'm not happy with that. And I started again. So same deal. We've got the UAD 1073 on startup and nothing really going on here, just for color. And I came back to it later and did a tiny little boost at 4.8K just for a little bit of presence. But I did that after the next lot of processing. So instead of going for like Pro Q3 or the Logic channel strip, I went for the SSL channel strip, the one I like to use on drums a lot. Kind of just a nice, easy channel strip to use, but also it limits you to using your ears. There's no frequency analyzer and the cuts aren't as narrow. It's a bit more broad and it's a bit more natural sounding when you EQ on this. So I thought I'm going to go for a bit more natural, desk kind of sounding EQ as opposed to digital. Even though it's all digital, the idea is it's an emulation of hardware. Let's just undo all these. So first of all, just a high pass. Just cutting it so we can't really notice that we're losing anything, but we're cleaning up that low end rumble. It seems to be quite a gentle slope on this. And then a low pass filter, just cutting away some of those mega high frequencies. So cutting up around 15K here. And that makes more sense when we boost this high shelf later. So I might have done this after I did my high-end EQ up here. Okay, so again, looking for that mid-range stuff that's bothering me to start with. That stuff. Like, that's just gross. Especially in a dense mix, it's like all you start to hear is that frequency and it clouds everything. So I searched for it, you know. Like, yes, that's the guy I'm hearing. And then just cut. I thought around 9 dBs sounded good. Seems massive, but it still sounds natural. And just the narrow band here, but it's definitely not as narrow and surgical as the digital equalizer. So have a listen to that. So definite improvement straight away. And we've just got some compression going on here as well. Just a very low ratio, 2.5 to 1. And then fairly fast release, slow attack. 3 to 6 dBs of compression. But it sounds fairly gentle. Now, the next thing I did was bring in a little bit of that high-end clarity to the pick sound. I want to hear that when the mix is quite dense. I still want to hear the acoustic guitar in it. So we've gone for a boost up around 15K, and that's kind of where we're cutting up here on the low pass filter. You know, around 2.5 dBs there, just a little boost of air. And that helps it cut through the mix a bit better. So you can hear the pick in there. It sounds nice. And then a little bit of a cut around 3.5K. This felt a little like scratchy to me. You know, like 2 to 1.5 dBs cut there. Fairly narrow band as well. And then lastly, clearing up a little bit of space in the low mids around 380 Hertz. Looking for this kind of stuff. Just something like that. That's just to make space for all the other instruments, for when the vocals are in there as well. It's sounding a lot more natural now. And then followed it up with a little bit more compression here. Kind of got the mix around 55%. And it's just adding a little bit of extra color to it. Just massaging it all together. And that's basically it. So way simpler approach, way less sort of surgical cutting and looking at the analyzer and stuff like that, which is such a trap on EQs like that, because you just start looking at the waveform and then just searching for things. When you use an EQ like that, you're forced to use your ears and make decisions and usually end up with a better sound because you just follow what sounds good. So I would definitely recommend, if you are grabbing like 3 or 4 EQs on a channel and it's sounding a bit gross, you might need to take a step back, rethink your approach, try and simplify it, try and do more with less. So take like an EQ like this, do some bigger, bolder moves, but maybe a bit broader and not so surgical. Because once you start cutting that stuff, you know, like on the acoustic guitar, I started cutting at these frequencies, cutting here, cutting there. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing more spikes here because I'm just putting all these holes in the sound. And so it's a big trap to fall into, and it happens all the time. You'll just be like, oh, I just need to do a little chop here, and you grab another EQ and you do a little cut there, and then you keep mixing, and then you're like, oh, this is bothering me. And then you grab another EQ on the same sound later and you do another cut. And before you know it, you're creating more problems than you're fixing because you have poked so many holes in the mix in like an unpleasant way. So don't go down the EQ rabbit hole. Or if you have, it's okay to hit reset, go back and try again and do it better the next time around. It's always worth taking a break while mixing, coming back, listening, grab a couple of references, check that things are sounding okay, go back to your mix. You'll start to hear all the problems pretty quickly. And it's usually once you've been mixing for a long time that you start making these poor decisions and you go down that rabbit hole. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. Keep that in the back of your mind when you're mixing. Am I going down a rabbit hole here? Do I need to take a step back? Make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.